I'm going to acknowledge that I put in the time and the sweat and the resources, and I'm not waiting around to see what I deserve because I believe that if you wait around to see what you deserve, you never get what you demand. And so for me, they say, if you can name it, you can tame it, but I'm going to name it so I can claim it, right? I'm going to work tirelessly for it. And what I want people to do, and I am posting about the slog, about the success, about the stress, about the sweat, about the smiling, about all the wonderful and all the wonder hell, right? The wonderful and the hell, because I want people also to see that there is a lesson also to be learned in the like just how hard are you willing to work for the thing that you want.
You're currently listening to Laura Gassner Otting. My girl LGO leads a limitless life. She helps people get unstuck and achieve extraordinary results. She's the author of Mission Driven, a book for those moving from profit to purpose, and Limitless, which debuted as the #2 best-selling hardcover book on the Washington Post list, right behind Michelle Obama. I'm excited about my conversation with LGO today. It is truly genuine, and it's cool to see someone right before the success kicks in. Her book has been on fire ever since it debuted, and it's really cool to see somebody who is really truly living their purpose. So with that said, let's get this thing started, guys. Let's get after it. This is Your Superior Self, episode 79, Leading a Limitless Life, with best-selling author Laura Gassner Otting. What is up, Superior Nation? Welcome back to Your Superior Self. I'm Trey Downs, and I'm excited about tonight's episode because I get to hang out with LGO, Laura Gassner Otting, the best-selling author of the book Limitless, How to Ignore Everybody, and Carve Your Own Path and Live Your Best Life. Living your best life. Are you living your best life? And the quote that I'm going to lead with today's episode is straight from the book Limitless, and this will fire you up, I promise you. This book begins with the premise that the only definition of success that counts is yours and yours alone, and that the only way to be truly limitless is to journey along your very own life's path. I encourage you to stop giving votes to the people in your life who shouldn't even have a voice. Only you get to decide. Man, mind blown. Think about that. Think about those words. Giving people votes who shouldn't even have a voice in your life. Think about that. Like the psychological warfare that people who you haven't seen in 20 years have over you. Just because in high school they were the cool kids, or they were the jocks, or they were a neighbor or a girl or a guy who you had a crush on, who you wanted to impress, or you're still trying to impress, or all your friends on Facebook that you don't reach out to anymore, that you disconnected from, but you communicate secretly through the life that you portray on Facebook, on a timeline of creating this highlight reel of yourself because it makes you look like you have everything put together. And when in reality, we really don't. And it's because we've followed these pathways that we believed would lead us to success, and we try to appease people that have no idea what we're doing, have no idea what we're really feeling. They just say something in passing. You try to talk to somebody about your goals or your dreams or your mission, and they don't fully understand because it's not theirs. They say something slick like, maybe you shouldn't do that, maybe you should have a backup plan, maybe the time isn't right, maybe you should probably go in a different direction, and we take their advice because we already don't feel good about what we're trying to achieve. We already in the back of our minds feel like we're going against the grain, and that we're going to receive we're already receiving negative feedback from ourselves, but to hear it from somebody else, once we hear that first negative opinion or negative feedback, we immediately retreat from our decision to push forward in our lives, to go after that dream or that goal or that idea that we have that inspires us or motivates us to be different, to go back to school, to start a side business, to think of other ways to collect revenue or to better ourselves. And we start, it's like we're already beating ourselves up inside. It takes that one person to kind of give us a little bit of feedback, and it's like, man, we're back at square one. We don't know what to do. And it could be freaking nobody. It could be the Dunkin' Donuts guy. It could be I don't know. It could be anybody, guy at a mall. It could be the mailman. It could be a coworker. It could be a family member that you haven't seen in forever that just pops out of nowhere at a family reunion and says your idea is dumb. We give these people voices and votes in our lives, and it doesn't matter. What matters is how it makes you feel inside, that spark that it gives you, regardless of what it is. You follow that. And you follow that until you're done. Not until everybody makes fun of you. Not until you start failing. Not until you feel like you can't go any further. You go. You keep going. You keep going and going and going until you're done. Don't let anybody tell you to be different. Don't let anybody voice their opinions, their negativities, their negative world views on you. You do you. You do what motivates you. You do what inspires you, no matter what that is. And you finish it. Don't quit. Finish it. Oh yeah, I'm getting fired up over here, and I haven't even talked about today's guest yet. It's crazy. I'm fired up over her too, because she's too legit to quit. She is the lightweight champion of the get the hell out of your own way world. She is a competitive rower and professional badass. Her name is Laura Gassner Otting. She is the author of the brand new book, Limitless: How to Ignore Everybody, Carve Your Own Path, and Live Your Best Life, which debuted as number 2 in the Washington Post bestseller list, right behind Michelle Obama. And I am excited to be able to bring to you my conversation with LGO. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, here is Laura Gassner Otting. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to Your Superior Self. I am excited to be able to have a conversation tonight with Laura Gassner Otting. She is the author of the best-selling book Limitless, which is, I think it's number 2 on DC's best-selling list behind Michelle Obama. And this book is straight fire right now. It is flying off the shelves, and I mean, everybody's reading it, and I'm very excited to be able to talk to Laura. Laura, thank you so much for joining the show.
Hey, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
So talk to me about Limitless. I think your first book was more geared towards selling and business. It was kind of more businessy, and this one is, I mean, you talk a little bit about your old company, nonprofits, but this is more inspirational and motivational. Like, what sparked that for you?
Yeah, it's really funny. I actually thought I was writing a business book, and it turns out that I wrote a self-help book, which I think is pretty funny because I'm not really a self-helpy kind of person. And I've gotten a bunch of reviews from pretty, legit people that have written in their reviews, like, I normally hate self-help books and I loved this book. So, I think that self-help and business really kind of go hand in hand, because if you're somebody who's running your own business, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're trying to figure it out and you're trying to grow your career, sometimes you just need how are you going to do it? You have to help yourself in order to get there, because you are the business. So it really sort of came out of this place where I woke up one day and I realized, over the course of interviewing thousands of people during a 20-year career of executive search, I noticed that there were tons of people who were super accomplished on paper, but who really weren't all that happy, which of course is why they were sitting in my office talking to me about a new job. And I was interested to know why. And so I spent some time after I sold that firm to my people, really trying to understand the differences between success and happiness and how they're not always intertwined, but how, in fact, if we're thoughtful about it, we can make them intertwined.
So when you're writing this book, right? Like you said, it was a business book at first. At what point, in what transition, like what moment did it change to a self-help? Do you remember the exact moment?
Yeah, I can tell you exactly the moment. So I had called a publisher and I said, look, I get on stages, I travel around the world, I speak to thousands of people, and I talk about confidence and finding your voice of leadership. And I don't have a book behind my name about that subject. So ironically, I'm actually feeling not that confident and I think I should have a book. And he said, awesome. We'd love for you to write that book and we'd love for you to write it here on our imprint. But before you do that, we're actually doing a series, a guidebook series, and we'd love for you to write the one about how to do work that matters, how to find purpose in your work. And I kind of went, well, I don't really know. I'm not sure. I already wrote that book about transitioning from corporate to nonprofit work. I don't really think that's, I don't really want to do it. And he said, listen, you might as well do it because the publisher you used is out of business. You can take your 80,000 word book, condense it to like 20,000 words, kind of coffee with an expert feel. And from there, you can then do the next book. And I said, okay, great. So I start writing that book and it's going to be, the non-obvious guide to purpose, doing work that matters, really compelling title, right? And I get like 3 weeks into the process and I'm kind of fighting with the editor. We're sort of going back and forth and we're really butting heads because the guidebook format is like chapter 1, problem solution, chapter 2, problem solution, chapter 3, problem solution. And purpose isn't really something that you can fit into that guidebook format. So I call him up and I said, look, I don't think I'm your person. I don't think I'm your author. Like this just isn't working for me. And I think you should have, I'm not the person to do this. And he said, actually, you're right. I agree. I said, wait, what? That wasn't the answer I was expecting. And he said, but actually, I think you're onto a bigger idea. And I think that we should do this as a big idea book in the spring in hardback when big idea books come out. And I said, wait, what? And then in a panic, I called my good friend Clay A. who is a genius about, in marketing. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh my God, what am I going to do? And he said, what do you want people to feel like after they've read this book? And I said, I just want them to stop being limited by everybody else's idea of what success should be and to get rid of that external definition and to just be their own person and be happy. I just want them to stop being limited. And he goes, so you want them to be limited, ignore everybody, carve their own path, and live their best life? And I said, yes. And I said, I love you, Clay. You are the greatest, smartest person I've ever met. And I would love to talk to you forever and ever and ever. But I actually need to hang up the phone right the hell now and go write this book. Because it was really wanting to pour out of me in that moment. And that was really the moment when it went from meta, right, being limited by this idea of what a business guidebook should be, to saying, you know what, any CEO, any entrepreneur needs self-help because they are their business. And so I'm going to write a book that's business-based, but also self-help, and it's going to be all of it.
That's a very interesting and amazing story. While you're writing this book, every time I do a podcast, I kind of envision that person that I'm making that episode for, or writing a blog or anything like that. Like, who were you writing this book for? Like, did you have that vision of who your typical reader would be?
I really thought that my typical reader would be somebody who had gotten maybe 10, 15, 20 years into their career and kind of turned around one day and said, all right, well, so I've built a life that is on paper supposed to be right. So how come it doesn't feel right? Right? They've gone through and checked off the boxes on everybody else's checklist to everybody else's definition of success. And then they turned around one day and went, is this all there is? Like, I got to be meant for something else. There's got to be more, right? And so it's those people who sort of want to pop their head up and say, okay, well, I've been this person for a lot of my life, but I want to be someone else now. I want to do something else now. And how do I go about making that switch? And what's interesting about the book is the first time I actually talked about the concept of limitless and living in consonance in person, like live to an audience. It actually happened to be to a group of millennial women of color who all worked in education. And at the end of this session, and I'm the only non-person of color that's at this whole retreat, at the end of the session, these 60 women get up and give me my first standing ovation of my life. And that was the moment where I went, maybe it's for more people than that. And since I've been using the framework with, middle-aged white guys in Canada who I'm doing executive coaching for, I've done it with stay-at-home moms that are trying to figure out who they want to be when they grow up, if they go into another professional career. The sound technician for the audiobook is this like thrash metal guitarist guy who splits his time between doing that and sound technician and also personal training. He does like fitness competitions. And as soon as we finish the 2 days of recording, he comes over to me and he's like, man, I really needed to hear this. It's like the universe brought you into my life at exactly the right time. And he's like, and I don't even believe in that universe nonsense. So it's been really funny because even though I had a very specific idea of the person who I was writing it for in my mind, it turns out that each and every one of us are carrying around some scorecard that was handed to us by somebody else at some point in our life. And that's how we're deciding whether or not we're successful. When in fact, that scorecard isn't even our scorecard to start with.
Do you feel like the level of success that you have achieved with this book so far, like, is it what you wanted? Is it what you expected? Or has this like lit a fire inside of you that is creating this hunger for more?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because, this is a book I never actually even intended to write. So the fact that anybody wants to spend even 5 minutes thinking about this book is kind of amazing to me and super humbling, and also has lit this fire, as you've said, that has made me realize that I actually want to do something more with it. I after the book came out, I started getting emails from people that I don't remember ever meeting. People that have heard me give a talk, or maybe I gave them random career advice, in passing at a party. And they reached out to me and told me things like, I talked to you at that party and I quit my job and I decided to open my own business. Or I heard you give this advice and I decided to drop out of, law school and pursue my real dream of fashion design, or whatever the thing is that they want to do. And this was a moment where I started realizing, oh, I better get this right. Like if I'm actually telling people what to do and giving them advice, it better be good advice. A woman who I profiled in the book actually tattooed the cover art of the book on her arm because she wanted to be reminded of the message of the book every single day. Now that's crazy. And, when she showed me that, I literally couldn't form sentences for like an hour. I was just so overwhelmed by it. But then you get to this point and you're like, well, if the book is actually impacting people in this way, maybe I could impact more people in this way. And that's the moment where I realized that I have a huge, massive honking ego that I didn't realize that I had. And I would apologize for the ego, but the truth is I actually want to live with this burden of potential a little longer because, for me, I'm experiencing this thing that I'm calling wonder hell, which is like, it's so incredible, and I'm so humbled, and I'm so amazed. And also, I've never been this exhausted in my entire life, and I've run 3 marathons and birthed 2 children, right? Like I've never been so tired. So it's wonderful and it's hellacious. It's wonder hell, but wonder hell is the place where the burden of potential kind of unpacks itself and sets up its sleeping bag. And it's in that moment that you realize, oh, actually, this could be bigger. And I feel like if I don't serve its potential right now, that I'm really going to look back on it and regret it. So, you said the book has taken fire, and I am, standing here with the fire hose. I am doing everything I can and throwing everything I can. I've done, almost 100 podcasts at this point. I've done national TV in, 3 different countries. I was on the Today Show a few weeks ago. I'll be on Good Morning America next week. It's just, it's an all out press because I feel like there is a moment in time that this book can be hot, and also a zeitgeist moment in our culture where people are looking for purpose and meaning in their work. And if I don't take advantage of it,
Hmm.
I got to I got to hand my entrepreneurship badge back.
Yeah, you got to hand over the card. I mean, you got to. Yeah, you're right. You got to capitalize on on the streak right now. I think it. Yeah, I saw your interview on the Today Show. Like, what was that feeling like to sit there in front of the cameras in New York? I don't know if you've done anything similar to that, but like, what is that feeling that like that? I mean, it's got to be like surreal, right?
So you want to hear something crazy?
Yeah.
That live interview with Hoda and Jenna Bush Hager, and Ryan Eggold on the Today Show on live national TV was my very first interview for the book and my very first ever television interview.
Really?
Yes. You want to talk about trial by fire. So, it's funny. I said to my husband going into it, I said, I'm just going to pretend like it's like Good Morning Poughkeepsie, and apologize to any of your listeners from Poughkeepsie. But I'm just going to pretend like it's Good Morning Poughkeepsie. And I'm just going to be like, there's a host and there's a
Hmm.
couch and there's cameras and there's lights. And I'm just going to pretend like the stakes are low. And he looked at me and he said, that's a really great strategy. Except you haven't done Good Morning Poughkeepsie either.
Well, I mean, I thought you did great. I think you did. I think you just once you get into it, it just kind of all your training from the motivational talks and speeches that you've done before just come into play, right?
Here's the thing. I did really great because they were really great. Honestly, I think I could have thrown up on myself and they would have been like, cut to camera two. They would have cleaned me up and then they would ask me another question. They were such professionals. I mean, Hoda and Jenna Bush, I mean, they are able to talk to anybody. They are just really incredible people. And one of the lines that I said on the show about how we spend so much time judging our bloopers by everyone else's highlight reels really honestly wasn't even part of the script that the amazing producer worked with us to put together. That was just small talk that I was having with Ryan Eggold before the segment even started, while the producers were talking in Jenna and Hoda's ears. So we went back and forth. What happened is I got a phone call on a Thursday, and it was like, can you be in New York City on Tuesday to be on the Today Show? And I was like, does anyone say no? Because that's like a rhetorical question. And then we went back and forth for 3 days, really trying to figure out, well, what do we want to talk about? What are the key points? And you have to fit it into this 4-minute segment. So it was super fun to do that and really exciting. And now, I'm preparing to do something on Good Morning America next week. And that's a completely different experience because since then the book has taken off. It's a bestseller. So Good Morning America is flying me down. And we're doing a whole piece where it's not like 4 minutes on the couch talking about an idea, but it's actually going to be like a
Mhm.
longer segment where we're like physical and there's props and there's audience interaction. It's actually about the book and the ideas in the book. So it's been really interesting to watch the development of it. And of course, and I'm actually not that nervous about Good Morning America because between the Today Show, 5 weeks ago or whenever it was, and now I've done 100 podcasts. I've done 5 other national, I've done, national TV in Canada. I've done other, local citywide, big city TV. Like I've done so much of it now that I feel like if I don't have my bits down by now,
Yeah,
I'm in
yeah.
trouble.
I mean, you got your story. You know the book. I mean, it's something that everybody can relate to because everybody has these feelings. It's like I don't know. Like you, how long did it take you to write the book?
About 3 weeks.
Three. Oh my God, three
But
weeks.
but but it took me 25 years and 3 weeks to come up with the book.
Mm. But that's what I was going to say is that like the process that it takes to write the book, right? 3 weeks, and then to go to to submit it for publication and all that, and then it comes out. It's like perfect timing because I feel like everybody is feeling this way. Like everything that you wrote in this book, uh, I've highlighted a shit ton of lines in here that really touched me in a way that I can relate to. And it seems like obviously everybody's loving it and buying it up. Like everybody feels the same way that you did. And it's just remarkable to me. It's like, you know, it's like we all share this idea of what success is. And we're not really achieving that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the book has been successful because it's not based in deep science and research. It's based on my observations as an executive recruiter over the course of 20 years. And, I did do a lot of research. If you think, like, I've interviewed thousands of people, and everybody feels stuck at some point in their life. They just feel like, I've done the work. I got the right internship. I got the right job. I went to the right college. Like I did all the things right. So why aren't I like I've achieved? Like I live in the nice house. I drive the nice car. I married the right spouse. I've got the right kids. I go to the right after school programs. Why aren't I happy? Like why am I still stressed? And a lot of it is because we've been fed this idea that success has to be this one monolithic, fastest and highest, fastest path to the corner office possible, period. And the truth is that that's not what it's going to be like for all of us. And not only is it not going to be like that for all of us, even if it is like that for somebody right now, it doesn't stay like that forever. So, you've got really young kids. What you're looking for right now out of your work may not be the same thing that it was 7 years ago before you had those kids. And it may not be the same as it's going to be 7 years from now when those kids are deep into elementary school or middle school. What you're going to be looking for in terms of the values that you're able to manifest through your work on a daily basis and show them and role model for them will be different. The kind of flexibility that you're going to want to have to be around is going to be different. The type of money that you're going to want to earn is going to be different. And so if all we're saying is success is the fancy Maserati and the beautiful beach house and the corner office and all of these things, then all we're doing is making ourselves crazy running faster and faster on a treadmill that doesn't go anywhere unless that's where we want to go. And so what I say in the book is that I want people to stop leaning into this idea of being all things to all people all the time, but to decide what success means for you, personal, individual, wonderful, quirky you, and lean into that instead. Because when you achieve that success, then you're going to be really fucking happy.
You know what's weird is today I was listening to a podcast. It's Philosophize. What is it? Philosophize This, and he was talking about Buddhism, and he was talking about the origin of it, and he was talking about the four noble truths. And the first one is the state of suffering, that everybody suffers, that everybody has this mentality that the newness wears off, and then we're in this negative state. Like you were talking about the Maserati, you were talking about the job.
Yeah, the next bright new thing.
Yeah, we take these things for selfish reasons. We take job because we want these the big paychecks. We take it for the prestige of the position, the status of that, and then after a while, it kind of it wears off. And then I was reading your part 2, the 4 elements of consonance, and what is the first one? What is calling? And so I kind of related the two because if we don't follow our calling and we take things selfishly, like a job that we want to just be able to pay the bills or buy things that we want, then we don't have calling to that position. Can you go in a little bit more detail about calling and what calling is?
Yeah, so it may be that your calling is that you want to buy the Maserati, and that's awesome, right? That's great if that's your calling. We have this idea that we have to have calling, this lofty purpose, this whole higher calling, and because of that, we say, I actually have bills to pay. I can't really do the higher calling thing. That's really for nonprofit people in the white hats, for other people at other times. And the truth is that your calling, I looked up the word purpose in the dictionary because I was frustrated by the fact that people sort of assigned purpose to the nonprofit sector and everything else was like, what? Pushing paper, right? Like it doesn't matter. And because even though I spent 20 years helping place people in C-suite positions in, massive nonprofits with, multi-million dollars of budget, I never actually worked in a nonprofit. Like my company worked for the nonprofit sector, but we were decidedly for profit. And I spent my career being a for-profit entrepreneur. And I was sort of struck by this dichotomy that, we have this idea that purpose is only over there for people who don't make any money, when meanwhile, I made plenty of money as somebody who had a lot of purpose. And so I looked up the word purpose in the dictionary, and what I learned is that purpose means merely this: the reason for which something is done. Like, that's it. Like, there's no picture of Mother Teresa. There's no picture of St. Peter. It's just the reason for which something is done. So if your purpose is the selfish thing of buying the Maserati because for whatever reason that's what's going to cause you joy right now in this moment, then go for it. If your purpose is curing cancer, then go for that too. It may be that your purpose is starting your own business, is being financially independent, is getting out of debt for the first time, in your life. It may be that your purpose is staying home and raising your children. Your purpose only has to be your purpose. And the reason that we're unhappy about our calling is that we think that we have to give votes to all kinds of other people in our lives. And we end up giving votes to people in our lives who shouldn't even have voices.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, have you done that? Like, give an example of a time where you gave somebody else a vote in your
Yeah,
life.
when I was in fourth grade, my English teacher told me I was a really argumentative young lady and maybe I should be a lawyer. And I told her she was wrong, of course. But then I proceeded to spend the next 10 years putting myself in an educational path that got me into law school, where I looked around on day one and I said, what on earth am I doing here? I don't want to be a lawyer. But I let her define me early on. And it's not like she had a crystal ball. It's not like she had a Ouija board or some, pirate treasure map that told me where I was going. She just was making a random aside and an anecdotal comment, and I took it as definitional. And I think we do that all the time, whether it's somebody telling us, where we might show early competence and we should have a career, somebody telling us that we'll be happy if we just marry the right person, if it's somebody telling us that we don't have to do the job as well as we think we need to for the client. Really, what matters is the profit margin for the company. I mean, there's all kinds of times where people kind of hijack our definition of success. And because they're either in a place of power or because they are older than us or maybe have more experience than us, we go, oh, okay, they probably know what they're talking about. But the truth is, maybe they know what they're talking about for them, but they don't know what they're talking about for us. Every time we tell somebody our hopes and our dreams, they go, oh, I don't know. I'm not sure. Do you really think you can? Because they're hearing them all and translating them through their own anxieties and fears.
Mm-hmm. I mean, a lot of people, I feel like, take these jobs and they like to work and they get comfortable for 30, 35 years and retire because it keeps their dreams. It keeps these crazy ass dreams that they have like mute. It keeps them silent in their heads. Like they just continue to do the things day in and day out because if they're doing this work and they just kind of silent those dreams and they silence that feeling inside of them, they don't have to deal with it, right? Like they feel good when they go to a warehouse or a factory or they go to the office in the cube. And I mean, this just not everybody does this, but some people just go through the drudgery of every day, 40 hours a week, and they do it and they're comfortable with it because it drowns out their dreams. They don't have to deal with that.
They don't have to deal with it, but for some people that's okay. So another one of the C's, as you mentioned, consonants, the first C is calling. Another one of the C's is control. So I'm an entrepreneur deep in my soul, as are you, and I damn well I'm going to have control over exactly how much I'm making, the clients that I work with, the stages I decide to appear on. I went with a hybrid publisher because I wanted control over the publishing process. Like I am a control freak of the highest order. In fact, I sit on the aisle seat of every airline I'm on, not because I think that if the plane's going down in a fiery ball, I'm going to survive. I want the illusion of control even in that situation. So there are some people who want more control than others. For years, I ran my company and I was always fascinated that people would come from big marquee search firms to come work for my magical mystery tour as we were growing and as we were these sort of iconoclasts in the market, really changing things up. And in those early years, I was fascinated that there are these people who came to work for me who were not entrepreneurial. We were a really entrepreneurial shop, and I couldn't understand why somebody who was working for me wasn't entrepreneurial. And then I realized just because they want to work in an entrepreneurial environment doesn't make them themselves entrepreneurs. That's why I'm the CEO and they're not. And so I really began to understand that even though I wanted 100% control over my destiny, maybe they wanted 70% of the control over their destiny. And maybe other people only want 50% of control over their destiny. And even though that makes no sense to me whatsoever, whatsoever. There are people who like to be in a place where other people make the decisions because then they don't have to worry about what happens if they fail.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. I think it's like the hinge point that people get stuck at, right? So like they get to that point in their lives where they're tired of being in that career that they made based on someone else's opinion or not expertise, but thoughts, and they took their advice, and now they realize that they have to pivot. They have to do something. It's up to them at this point to make a change. And it's at the hinge point of, well, if I want something to change, now I have to put it into action. And that's where they get stuck because they don't want to make that decision. They don't really, I don't know if they know what action they have to do. I mean, maybe they're just scared of it. I don't know.
Well, or they've never been in a place where they've had to make those decisions. So the decisions feel really scary because, oh my God, what if I fail? And what if people see? What's going to happen? And, my favorite Eleanor Roosevelt quote is, you would worry much less about what other people thought of you if you realized how little they did. And I love that quote because the truth is we're all so worried about everyone else looking at us that we're not even looking at anyone else. We're so busy.
Well, did you you have a lot of your story in here in this book. Like, were you kind of worried at all putting that out there? Like that people would, I mean, of course, it's a phenomenal book, but at any point did you say, oh, maybe I need to tone it back a bit?
I didn't want to put my story in there at all because even though I make my living as a public speaker, I'm actually kind of a raging introvert, and I've spent 20 years doing executive search. So my job was to make it all about someone else's story, right? Like that was my job, was to find out someone else's story and present about them. So the fact that anyone would be interested in my story sort of bemused me a lot. But it's funny, part of writing the book for me, part of the discomfort of it, which of course, I don't want to do anything that's comfortable. Like that's boring. I've already done it. So I want to do things that are uncomfortable. So for me, getting uncomfortable meant being okay with the fact that I kind of had to be one of the stars of the book. I profile about a dozen people in the book. But I also had to profile myself in order to be credible as somebody who, I'm not just the president of the hair club for men. I'm a client too, right? I had to be able to say, and I can relate to it because I walked in your shoes also.
Like, at what point did you I mean, I'm not taking any credit away from the book, but at what point did you say to yourself, this thing's going to blow up? Like this thing's for real.
Oh boy. I think, so here's the thing about being number 2 on the Washington Post bestseller list. I didn't even know I was until I was recording a podcast on April 1st. My friend Eddie Turner, and he says, man, he goes, you're everywhere. It's incredible. I mean, you're all over DC. You're right behind Michelle Obama and the bestseller list. And on the podcast, you can hear me laughing hysterically because I thought he was just pranking me.
Oh, God.
And finally, he's like, girl, you got to Google yourself. I was like, what are you talking about?
There's nobody that calls you and tells you this kind of shit?
No, I had no idea. You would think that and I texted the publisher and I'm like, is this for real? How did he set this up? This is really for 20 minutes. In the first 20 minutes recording the podcast with him, I'm busy texting 15 different friends. Is this real? Can you Google me on your computer? Maybe he just how did he do that technology? That's amazing. I thought it was a prank. I really had no idea. So yeah, and my publisher's like, we didn't know. We didn't even see it. I mean, it was before it even it was the week before it launched. It was number 2 on the bestseller list. So we weren't even looking for it. So it was just this crazy thing. But here's the thing when you're like, oh, I think it's going to be big. Now I want it to be huge.
Yeah, right.
It's not enough. I want to be Reese Witherspoon's book club big. I want to be Oprah under the oak tree Super Soul Sunday big, Pretty Woman Mistake big, huge, big, right? Because again, I'm an entrepreneur. So part of me is I wonder what happens next, right? I mean, yeah. I am in my avocation, I'm a competitive rower. And the first time, I just took it up a few years ago, and the first time I was in a race, and the races are 1,000 meters long. You're rowing in a boat with 7 other people, so you can't stop, because if you're stopping, you're going like full bore. Your heart rate's at 195, 200, and you're going 36 strokes a minute. I mean, you are flying. If you stop, you will get hit in the chest with an oar shaft and break your ribs and get ejected out of the boat and drown. So you have to keep going. But the very first race I did, I got to the 750-meter mark, and I was like, this is amazing. My chest feels so huge. I wonder what happens now. And the whole time I'm like rowing, rowing,
Yeah.
rowing. I'm like, I wonder, like, will my heart explode? Do I have a heart attack? Like, what happens next? But I was so fascinated by the limit that was sitting in front of me, and the knowledge that I was going to go through it come hell or high water. And so for me, this idea of, here I am sitting on this book that seems to be touching a real emotional nerve with people. It's really resonating with people. Now I want to know what happens next. I want to know, like, how do I bring it to more people? Because if I'm getting emails from people telling me that they put a tattoo on their arm because they believed in the message so much, I feel like people could be a lot happier if they read it. And now I want to know, how do I do that? Now I'm fascinated by the game of it all.
I think it's good. I think it's healthy to say that you want that, right? Like, I mean, it's like you were writing this book and you had this idea of success, and it went above and beyond that. It went above and beyond what you thought it was going to be. And now it's creating this fire in people, and people are catching it, and they're loving it, and it's cool as shit. Like, you want more, and it's okay to say that. Like, I want to be like, me as a podcaster, I want to be as big as Joe Rogan. I want to be as big as Dan Patrick. Like, that's my goal. And I think a lot of people are scared as shit to even like mention their goals, because they're afraid that it might not happen, and people might hear it, and
Yeah,
they might fail.
absolutely. I mean, look, I've worked harder for this book launch than almost any other thing I've done in my professional life. And I mean, I have the under eye circles and the indigestion to prove it, like the sleepless nights to prove it. And it doesn't make me special, right? I mean, when Robin Roberts tweeted and put on Instagram and Facebook about, how much she's loving the book, and quoted from it in the middle of a Good Morning America interview with someone else, I went all of a sudden from being, like 30,000 something on Amazon to number 373 overall in Amazon. And obviously, people like Brene Brown and Glennon Doyle and Rachel Hollis are like, whatever, girl, I've been number one, but for me, like 373 is a number that for like a first time big idea book author is like, gets a shocking response from people in the know. And I went to pick up my eighth grader, who's 14 years old, after school that day, and he follows me on Instagram, so he saw me post about this on Instagram. And I have to say, forget whatever success I have about the book. The fact that I have a teenager who follows me on Instagram makes me awesome.
How
Like, that to
weird
me,
is
like,
that? Like,
I
tell
mean,
me that.
that's amazing. It's just amazing. But he gets in the car and he's like, "So Robin Roberts, huh?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "That's kind of a big deal, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then he looks at me, he goes, Mom, a lot of other people have written better books than you, right?"
What the?
And I'm like, "Well, yeah." And he goes, like deeper, more scientific. Like they've spent like 10 years writing their opus. Like, that, right? And I was like, yeah. And he goes, and a lot of other people are working just as hard as you for this, right? It's like, you realize that this is special, that like you've worked really hard, but like you've also gotten lucky. And it's not like other people are doing exactly what you're doing and they're getting crickets. He's like, so I just want you to know that, and like live in this moment and appreciate it, because it's really kind of amazing.
And I would have said to my son Camden, I would have said, people have gotten better grades in science. You know that, right?
Yeah, well, I can't unfortunately say that to this kid because he's pretty damn smart. But here's the thing, like, I'm gonna acknowledge that I put in the time and the sweat and the resources, and I'm not waiting around to see what I deserve, because I believe that if you wait around to see what you deserve, you never get what you demand. And so for me, they say, if you can name it, you can tame it. But I'm gonna name it so I can claim it, right? I'm gonna work tirelessly for it. And what I want people to do, and I am posting about the slog, about the success, about the stress, about the sweat, about the smiling, about all the wonderful and all the wonder hell, right? The wonderful and the hell, because I want people also to see that there is a lesson also to be learned in the like, just how hard are you willing to work for the thing that you want?
Mm. Well, everybody wants that quick success. They want the 10 hacks to getting 10 million downloads, the 10 hacks to selling, getting on the best selling list. They want the instant success, and it's not instant.
It's not. You want one of the three hacks to instant success? Show up, shut up, do the work.
I love that. I'm going to tattoo that on my ass.
That's it. Show up, shut up, and do the work. You have to do the work, and you have to be willing to do the hard yards in the dark when nobody sees and there's no glory to be had.
How much work did you put in on this book? Like, how many late nights?
Oh boy. I mean, it took me 3 weeks, but I think I might have been writing for 3 weeks straight. It's entirely possible. But again, it's a lot of the lessons from the book came from the late nights of the 20 years prior.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, because it all works up to that, right? Like, everybody looks at freaking Tony Robbins and Gary Vee, and they all, they post Gary Vee quotes with lions, and they think that they're going to be an influencer and a thought leader, and it's not that, man. Like, look at Gary Vee when he started Wine Library back on YouTube back in the day when he had like 2 followers. I mean, it's hard work. It's hard work.
Yeah, I've been playing around with this like image in my mind, and I haven't quite figured out how to do it yet. But if you imagine like a wavy curve, right, that sort of goes up and down below a line across, and if the line across is success, and the wave goes above the success and it goes below, and it goes back above and it goes below, everybody looks at the curves above success and tries to emulate that. But they don't look at what happens below when there's work and there's failure and there's iteration and there's iteration and innovation, and say, oh, actually, failure wasn't finale, failure was fulcrum. So I don't want to just imitate the success. I actually want to imitate the hard yards too, because that's really where I figure out, is this my passion that I'm just following, or am I willing to invest in it and actually do the work to get me better at it so I can perfect my passion?
What is your passion?
Right now, I mean, I think you can hear it. It's this, right? It's figuring. My passion is doing the thing I think I can't do. Again, I go back to Eleanor Roosevelt, right? Face your fear and do the thing you think you cannot do. Because I do believe that each and every one of us has multitudes inside of us, but we don't figure that out. We don't figure out what we're capable of until we try. Look, nobody thought you could run a 4-minute mile until Roger Bannister did it.
Yeah.
And then as soon as he did it, it was like one guy after the next guy after the next guy, over and over and over again over the course of the next month. Because as soon as it was like, oh, it's doable, no, people no longer had that block. And so for me, what I'm passionate about, it's like I always say, my superhero is that I can look into somebody's soul and I can see their greatness in a way that maybe they've never seen it or never been able to believe it, so they can finally act on it and do amazing things. And so my passion is always pushing past those limits that consign these great ideas to limbo.
Yeah, I mean, I'm right there with you. Like, podcasting is a vehicle for me. Like, do I love creating the episodes and everything like that every week? Yeah, I mean, I like to create the art. I'm sure you like the process of being an author, but is that what your passion is? No, I don't think it's
a vehicle.
It's a vehicle. Your passion is connecting with people and seeing inside of them and seeing and relating with them and finding that hunger in them and sharing that experience and bringing that outside of them and helping them move forward in their lives, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, that's what we live for. That's why I do the podcast, is to connect people, to connect with people like you, who I see the fire in your eyes, even though I can't see you right now, but I know that the fire is there in your eyes, and I can feel it, and I can read it in your words that you write on paper. And being able to be close to that and to be able to transfer that fire into audio form and then connect it with a bunch of people that are listening to this right now, like, that to me is my passion. Like, to be able to connect people with people like you who are just on fire right now.
Yeah, I mean, just think about the lives that you're changing. People are listening to this as they're commuting to work, or maybe they're working out at the gym, or they're walking their dog, or who knows what. And your podcasts are planting seeds in their mind that maybe they act on them tomorrow, maybe they act on them next month, maybe it's 10 years, but at some point that this becomes part of the preparation, that when opportunity appears, suddenly it looks like luck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But these are the seeds.
That's exactly right. And that's what I want people to understand, is that when you start doing things that fire you up, and you might not see the immediate effects of it. It's like football, right? Like the running game. You keep pounding the ball and pounding the ball and pounding the ball, but eventually you might get down to the goal line. But again, you might eventually not make it at all. But if you don't keep trying, that hole may never open up for you. But you got to be ready for that hole to open up when it does, or else you'll miss it.
Absolutely. I think they say luck looks an awful lot like hard work. And I believe that's true. I think that a lot of things have happened to me in the course of promoting this book that have been wonderful, lucky moments, but I would not have been able to capitalize on them if I had not been completely prepared for them. And there is a whole other thing that I could write about, just like what has gone into book promotion, that I think there are so many lessons from it. But it really comes down to seeding relationships and understanding how you actually genuinely help other people. And I've been so surprised at how many people have shown up for me in this. And when I was talking to my husband about it, he was like, I don't know why you're so surprised. You've shown up for people for the last 48 years. Of course they're going to show up for you. But you just don't know. And the fact that the book is actually got some substance, I think is a happy coincidence. But it's I love that you look at this as, the podcast as the vehicle to be able to put ideas into people's heads that may help them find their greater selves, because that really is what it's all about.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm excited to connect with you. I think it's next Monday, CadreCon. You're going to speak there? Yeah, I'm so stoked. Is there any kind of surprise sneak peeks you can throw out there about what you're going to talk about?
Well, I'm actually there's the way the CadreCon works is you do a 12-minute 101 session, and then people can go to a 1-hour 201 session. And so the 201 session is going to be basically from the book. How do you yourself become limitless through this rubric of consonants? How do you figure out, how much calling, how much connection, how much contribution, how much control you want to have in your lives? But I'm actually going to do the 12-minute section about how managers and leaders can think about this framework so that they can actually get their staff to become more engaged.
I can't wait for that. I can't wait to meet you in person.
It's going to be super fun.
It's going to be awesome. So to end it off, I want to ask you this question. I've been really thinking about this lately, and it's been racking my mind, and it's changed the way that I approach life. Everybody tends to ask themselves, what is the meaning of life, right? What's the meaning of life when they get stuck? I want to ask you, what is your meaning to life? What are you going to bring to life to bring that value?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. What I'm going to bring to life will be everybody, including my own, best version of myself. That feeling where you are you just have this frictionless belonging. You just feel you have so much momentum and stride, and everything that you do well is being called upon to solve the problem at hand, and you're being rewarded in a way that's meaningful to you. I think that moment, that place where you're your very best version of yourself, I think when you're living in that moment, you are replete with meaning.
I love that. I cannot wait. Cannot wait. Laura Gassner Otting, how can people connect with you?
So all my good friends call me LGO, which I expect you to do on Monday when I see you. And so on all the socials, I'm at Hey LGO, and you can find me at heylgo.com as well.
Thank you so much for joining the show, LGO. It's been awesome, man. This has been a really, really good conversation.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you for having me.
I want to say thank you to Laura for coming on the show and hanging out and providing us with so much great information and content, helping us become limitless If you guys want to check her out on social media, all of her handles are at HeyLGO. You can go to her website at lauragassnerotting.com. Check out her book. Go to Amazon. Buy that bad boy and turn your life into this limitless journey. If you found this episode to be of value and you want more, go ahead and check out the rest of the incredible guests that I've had on the podcast. Hit subscribe and never miss an episode. If you want my podcast to be sent directly to your inbox, sign up for my email list. You can do that by going to yoursuperiorself.com and signing up. If you want to check me out and connect on social media, you can do that by going to Facebook and searching Trey Downs, or you can go to Instagram and search at TDowns80 and on Twitter at Downs Trey. Check me out over there, connect, and see what's going on behind the scenes. I post inspirational content and give you guys like a little bit of a backstage look at the podcast and some of the things that I'm doing. So I want to say thank you for joining today. Thank you for downloading. If this is your first episode, please hit subscribe and leave a rating and a review. Even though if it's not your first episode, leave a rating and a review. It helps me scale the podcast and get this out to people who are in need of inspiration. Thank you guys. I really do appreciate it, and you guys are the best. I will talk to you guys later.